Hi, good afternoon, Hina. Lovely you joining us today. To our audience, I'm Parul, life and leadership coach and your host today. And we have a special guest today, Hina Junejo. She is an expert on domestic violence and she has a lived experience. And today we'll be tapped into Hina's story and tips for our audience. So I'm not going to take much of your time. I'm going to pass the mic to Hina. Thank you for your time and thank you for joining us. So what I'd like to ask you, if you could introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and bit about your story, please.
Okay, inshallah. First and foremost, Jazakallah khair for inviting me and, letting me share this platform with all the beautiful people who, inshallah, are going to benefit with not only listening to my story, but also with my top tips, which have worked for me and, alhamdulillah, have led me to where I am today. So good morning, good evening from wherever you're joining, guys. This is Hina Junejo, and a little bit about my professional background. I am a lecturer as well as a resilience coach and a first-generation migrant, and I've relocated from Pakistan in 2011 in pursuit of finding my ground after getting released from a 12 years long imprisonment. And what I mean by that is that I have been in an abusive relationship for 12 long years. And when we say abuse, it was basically all sorts of abuse, emotional, mental, physical, and which eventually made me lose my identity, my children, my health. I was left broken to fend for myself and my children as well. My self-esteem had had a big hit. Self-confidence had touched rock bottom. These were the very dark moments of my life. And I think the only thing that took me through, on the other side of the fence or the only guiding force at that point in time was my parents' prayers, their du'as, as well as my faith in my religion. And so then when I was only left with these two things, really, and I held on tight to them, and decided to relocate alone by myself from Pakistan to UK to find peace, the meaning of life, find sanity, get to know who I was, feel grounded, and get to know the reality of life, of who I was and, who and what I've become today. So over the last 12 years that I've lived in UK, I've been able to educate myself to a postgraduate level. And that's what's kept me going in the academic world till date. And because of having an, academia background, I started teaching ESOL, working as an ESOL instructor. And that's where I got the opportunity to essentially meet and teach so many other women like myself, who were probably first-generation migrants, lost, broken, trying to find their ground just like I was, and they don't know where to begin from. That's when I thought, they were struggling just like myself in silence as well. So slowly and steadily, because I could resonate with their journey, I could resonate with their highs and lows, I could resonate with their challenges, because I had humble beginnings myself, you see. So I was kind of a beacon of light in their life. And it just started becoming, more and more popular. These sisters then started taking me in, as an inspiration. And I started taking them as an inspiration, thinking that these people need me, these sisters need me. I've come a long way, sacrificed a lot on the journey. So why would I like my other sisters to suffer in the same manner as I did? So that was essentially my inspiration, to start Resilience for All, which is my own CIC, which is basically I set up to help these women coming on the same journey or going on the same journey as I was at one point in time. Okay. So that's a little bit about my background, Sister Farah.
Thank you. Great, Sister. Well, thank you for sharing your story and Sorry to hear your past, but also I'm so pleased that how far you've gone and how you now using your experience to teach others and share. Yeah, so going from that, you kind of tapped into why you now focusing on helping others. So you
Yeah.
said, you are a teacher, SL teacher, but you now also focusing on domestic violence and abusive issues.
Yes.
Why you decided specifically to focus on DV and abusive issues to help others?
So as I mentioned earlier on, I had a lived experience, and then so far all my qualifications and the underpinning knowledge that I acquired in human resource development, because my post-graduation was an MSc in HRD, human resource development. And I've followed my intuition till date, and that's what I am intending to do all my life, because it's a huge guiding force. It helps you to reconnect with your own inner strength, with your own internal resourcefulness. So taking that as a guiding force and combining that with my curiosity, I kept on educating myself in body language, in NLP, in emotional resilience, and so on and so forth. So I thought, now that I've got a huge lived experience, a powerful lived experience, and no qualification can replace that, match that lived experience, you see. So why not combine that with the underpinning knowledge and start helping other women like myself? And that's where, I started progressing my career and my passions to help women suffering domestic violence, because there's a lot of support available out there. However, not everybody is for you, just in the same way that the message that I have to share is not going to be for everyone and anybody and everybody. It is going to hit home only with those people who can resonate with me, who have a similar kind of a background, who come from a similar setting, similar culture, and have a similar story. So my message is specifically for those survivors or victims at this point in time. So even if you're able to bring about a change in one person's life, specifically a woman, you can bring about a change in generations upon generations. And over there, I love to, share this quote. I know, this quote is now probably become very stereotyped, because probably everybody uses it. It's been used upon, years upon years. But the power of this quotation or this phrase doesn't end. You see, the meaning has never been diluted. And as they say, when you teach a woman, you teach a whole generation, right? So what does that
Absolutely.
teaching look like? So to me, that teaching was more being able to give them the ability to become more emotionally resilient, so that they're able to acquire anything in life that they will. So not only teach them or give them a fish, but teach them how to fish as well. So equip them with the resources they need in order to become successful in different or every aspect of their life. So that's what I thought, that, in order to take action and bring about a change, the biggest change you can bring about is in your own mindset. And when you bring about a change in your mindset, that then helps you reframe your mind and to be able to deal with your emotions, so that when change kicks in, good or bad, you're able to respond accordingly. And that's what's known as emotional resilience. So you develop the resilience in yourself emotionally to be able to not react and overact, but respond in an adequate manner. If you're able to do that, that helps you take control of your own self, right? You can't control the uncontrollables. The only thing that you can control is your own self. And so how do we control this big thing? It starts from your mind. You need to make a shift there. So that was
Absolutely.
basically, from where my journey started to help DV victims as well as survivors, to empower them, to be able to help them change their mindset and become more emotionally resilient. And literally, once when that shift is made, you won't believe how resourceful they become, because now they've learned how to connect with their inherent strength and resourcefulness. And Maulana Rumi used to say that one who knows himself knows Allah. So now that these sisters are able to connect with their inherent self, they're getting to know themselves better. And there, within there is signs from Allah, isn't it? So the more they get to know themselves better, the better they tend to get to know Allah, which is a great, source of blessing and a guiding force and strength in its entirety. So yeah.
Well, thank you. And we're going to come back to in terms of the mindset, because I'm going to ask you for top tips. So thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, I want to, because since you're talking about culture and religion, I want to tap into a bit more on that. So can you explain about, the taboo, kind of like in terms of cultural taboo that happen in certain community with divorce, marriage, sexual abuse, like it's not happening in our community. Child protection, like the whole lot is happening in every community, but the taboo. So from your own experience of but also working with other people, so can you just kind of go into a bit more details on that?
Inshallah. So I think we'll begin with the word taboo and, how it's considered normal or normalized in our community. A small little example, I think, is going to break it all down and bring clarity to the surface. So why is it, Sister Parul, that somebody from our family, our daughters, our sisters, when they get divorced, they suddenly now become the first priority for us, to get them resettled and get them out of our way and, push them out of our way and make them move on? Because now that they're back, they've perhaps brought along with them a baggage of a couple of kids as well, right? So now, what about the taboo in that case? Because your sister's now a divorcee, but you wish her well and you want the world for her and her children, right? She becomes the topmost priority for you, and all your activities are now geared towards giving her another life. However, when it comes to choosing, a girl for our own son and brother, we do not want, or we don't appreciate or encourage our sons, our brothers to go and get married to a divorcee. So why are the standards different then? They're not different in our religion. In our religion, much rather, it's such an empowering religion that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam once mentioned. It is a responsibility on our family members to help get the woman resettled in another relationship if she's a divorcee or if her husband has passed away, right? It's more of a responsibility because she's tasted being married. She knows about what it feels like. And because in order to make that, resettlement phase easy, he had also mentioned that the responsibility of the kafala, of sustaining and looking after the children, goes back to the biological dad. So in our religion, that clearly means that women have always been given equal or even more rights to help them integrate and feel empowered in the community, to help them move on and move forward in another relationship. So much so that the responsibility of her children from the previous relationship goes on to those children's biological father, right? So then if that's what our religion preaches, why do we not preach the same? Why do we then, just based on our convenience, pick and choose snippets of Deen, of Islam, and try to portray that that's the real Deen, that's the real Islam, just because it suits our fancy, right? So that's where the taboo comes in, that people are misconstruing. They are stripping their religion based on their own convenience, and that's not what needs to be done in reality. Both genders need to be given equal opportunity to move on. So sadly, it's still predominant in our South Asian culture. And this taboo needs to be broken down by talking, by having conversations. That's the first step going forward. Now, I've started my own TV broadcast program by the name of Saheli with Hina, which goes out viral every week. And essentially, that program is geared towards trying to break taboos that are predominantly embedded in our South Asian culture. And as you can see, we're talking about, moving on and getting resettled in another relationship. Alhamdulillah, when I was over that previous relationship, abusive marriage for 12 long years, and I relocated to England, I had a dream. I had a passion. I had a vision for myself, and I was seeking companionship. And I used to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this transition easy and smooth for me. And Allah made it easy for me. And I got remarried. I got settled. My current husband is a convert. He accepted Islam exactly in the same year on Christmas Eve. So September 2009, I got divorced. And December, Christmas Eve 2009, he embraced Islam. So now can you imagine, subhanAllah, that I was going through this downtime thinking about, I've lost a big thing in my life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the other side was making preparations to replace me with something even better. Now, at that point in time, as much as I was making dua for a smooth transition and finding a companion for life, which Allah gave me, and as you can see, this little Mustafa here with me, he's a handful, mashallah. I've got 2 other ones as well. So 3 from the previous one and 3 from the current relationship. But even at that point in time, my mindset was, Ya Allah, give me a convert. It's funny, but that's what my mindset was. I didn't want to explore another, brother coming from a South Asian community. So what was the reason behind that? Mainly because I knew that now people have already started labeling me. She's a divorcee. She's got a baggage of 3 children, right? So, who would want to marry me from the South Asian community anyway? And the fact that now I've relocated abroad, I'm investing in myself, in my development, in my growth. Anybody from my community who would want to, ride in the same boat would actually be maybe after my education, and along with that, the return on investment. So that was my kind of insecurity at that point in time, and it still persists. It's a shame. We need to talk more about it, right? We need to give our brothers and sisters a chance. And that's what our religion teaches us as well. The religion doesn't disempower us in any shape or form. So it is still a big taboo. And sadly, the women who talk about it are then, again, labeled to be feminists, although they're just talking from personal experience, although they just mean well. They're trying to, talk about things that are not going in their favor, things that we can, work towards together, not only to open the doors of opportunity for other sisters, but in turn for other brothers as well. Specifically, when we talk about marriage, obviously, sisters are marrying brothers, isn't it? So it has to be a complementary relationship. Anything that goes in favor of a woman would automatically be complementary for a man as well. And that's how healthy societies come into existence. So I think that, more conversations need to be, openly and transparently brought about through different platforms. And we need to stop suffering in silence. We need to start talking about, share our lived experiences so that other people can learn, from our learnings and on the way, the mistakes that we might have made. It's only Sadaqah Jariyah, sis.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for sharing and also your own experience. 2 things I want to tap into. You talked about you prayed. We all, whoever is watching is going to come from different religion or non-religion. I mean, I'm a big believer of law of attractions, and, as well alongside my religion. It's really nice that, we talked about, you talked about awareness. How we, it's nice, your young man joined us, but it's how we teach our children, if it's a boy or girl, are we giving different education? If you teach your boys how to behave with a man, respect women, when they grow up, they will not have the cultural taboo of, okay, I can't marry a divorcee, or I can, and I think that is a common issue in Asian society or Muslim community I've seen, is the loss of women, especially if they're divorced or widow or with children, is very hard. They find themselves in a difficult situation. But if we raise our children that way, so education definitely raising awareness, but it has to be not just women, it has to be men as well. Both need to have the open mentality so that we can support everyone. Doesn't matter whatever their background from. So, so thank you for sharing. Yes. So talking about, people are going to be, we have lots of audience watching, whether they're, having challenging time or domestic violence or other relationship, or those who's not been in relationship. So what I will appreciate, Hina, if you could share some advice or your top tips for women, either for women who's going through issues or who had past experience by struggling to move on, and also to those women who has not been into relationship yet, uh, what things to look for. So I know I combined the question, so maybe you can separate it. First, people who are in situation, how they can get out of it, but a mindset issue, you can tap into some of your tips on mindset issue. And those who's going into relationship, what to look for, so they know, um, yeah, so and yeah, the young man he wants to join us, feel free to bring him in if he wants to be joining us. Yeah, people can see we all are normal people. We have family, we have children, we have work, we have business, and we're doing all balancing it, we're not going to stop a video because our child needs attention. Is natural. And that's sometimes I think in the community or world or business or whatever it is, we forget that we are human being. We don't have to be all in a box. We are big, and it is being natural. And that's another reason, Hina, I said I do not edit any of my video. I keep it raw because I want people to see what we talk about. We are delivering all natural, coming from our heart, coming from our own experience, and we want to help people. So over to you, Hina. Your top tips for people who are in the relationship going through a tough time, who are about to go into relationship or thinking.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's fantastic that you mentioned about little Mustafa joining us today, and he usually does, when I'm on my speaking gigs or when I'm doing my TV broadcasting. Most of the times he just joins us, and it's just one of those that people get the feel that they are also part and parcel of our awareness journey. So they're also being exposed to the vibes, the words that we use, the emotions that we share and express, because children are like sponge. So they're observing everything and they're becoming a product of that system, right?
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
we're all about, creating awareness and spreading the message of peace and empowerment for women as well as men globally. So if these children are getting that opportunity to become a part and parcel of that journey with us from a very young age, what better opportunity, sis? They've got this lived experience under their belt, you see, and they're developing mentally and they're observing. So that's that with his participation. Now, going back to your two questions, which obviously we'll have to, address one at a time. So the first one is about those sisters who are stuck in an abusive relationship. How can they get out, or how can they improve their relationship? And the second one is sisters who haven't, or brothers who haven't yet got into a relationship. What kind of signs should they be looking for before they end up marrying the wrong one, right? Okay, so let's take the second one, the latter one first, and then we'll go back to the first one. Now, you see, when the Prophet ﷺ has given us a whole selection criteria for choosing a spouse, okay, and there are different categories. There'll be spiritual elements that you need to look into, financial elements, practical elements, physical side of things as well. A woman has all the right to, tell their family members if they're not attracted physically to that person, they can turn the proposal down. But lots of women do not know about that. And the ones who are switched on and do understand that chemistry, the family members try to force and shut that feeling down, which eventually is going to be building up into resentment. And you're starting off in a relationship from the wrong foot anyway. So physical attraction, as much as it is important for a man, it's really important for a woman. Both of them have the same psyche. Both of them have the same heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created them with the same mud, isn't it? So what's the difference? Right? So we need to understand these little nuances in our culture, that both husband and wife, or man and a woman, have equal rights. They have the right to choose based on the same criteria, apart from few things which are going to be different in their roles, in their respective roles. So the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, created men or wired them is different based on their role, and the way he's created women or wired them is different based on their own role, but both of them are empowered in each, in their individual self, right? So that's the first things first. Now we start moving forward on an equal level, on an equal keel now. Our needs are the same. Our aspirations are the same. And the main reason why we get married is to satisfy ourselves physically, mentally, spiritually, intellectually. And these are all the means to the end. And what is the end? To be able to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at a deeper level. So if that is the intention to marry, what should be the adab of getting married? What should be the criteria of getting married? What kind of people should you be looking for, right? So that's pretty straightforward because the criteria is defined. Now we get a little bit deeper into those things which are things that don't meet the eye, right? People can wear multiple, masks on their faces and come across to be very nice, very humble, very sociable, very caring. However, the reality versus rhetoric, two different things, okay? So now we're going back to, what kind of signs to pick up on or what kind of things to be aware of or look for in a spouse. First things first, we need to focus on the frame of reference, right? So what I mean by frame of reference is, who are the influences of this specific person? Who are his or her friends? Who are his family members? What is his or her relationship like with his siblings, with his mother, with his, immediate family members, with his or her extended family members, right? That will give you a deeper understanding of how does this person set up healthy relationships, healthy boundaries in different relationships around him. So that's the first thing, right? The frame of reference. Then, because the frame of reference has separate different categories, there's going to be spiritual exposure, there's going to be family exposure, there's going to be environmental exposure, there's going to be economic exposure, there's going to be demographics. So all these things need to be looked into to take a holistic perspective of what have been the influences growing older on this girl or a boy. Now, if we talk about, as we all know that home is your first institute. So if we talk about a family unit or a home, what kind of upbringing has this child got? Have they been grown older in a secure parenting environment, right? If that is the case, then obviously that child is going to be secure from within. They've seeked out for love and they've been given love in a secure manner. So that then becomes their frame of reference. That then becomes their learned behaviors. So they've seek love in a protective manner, secure manner. They give out love in the same way. However, if a child is coming from an insecure parenting environment, then what kind of learned behaviors? Obviously, they've seeked love, but that's not been given to them in an appropriate manner. Their emotional needs have not been met. So then when they grow older and seeking the relationship, they're going to give out love in the same insecure manner, the way that they've received it. So going back to that frame of reference, what kind of a family background do they come from? Now, there'll be many children out there who are coming from a single family, unit. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're coming just because they're coming from a single parent background, their upbringing wasn't that great. If the woman has split from the husband or vice versa, and they've been valid reasons, and after that, they've taken, a great responsibility to keep their children as a priority and give them a secure parenting environment and love and be able to fulfill their emotional needs, then again, it's the same. It's even better rather than being in an abusive relationship, deluding yourself that I'm in it because of my children's sake. No, you're not in there for the children's sake because the children are picking up on bad behavior. That then is going to lead to generational trauma because children have learned bad behavior. They're going to go and replicate that in their own relationship. And that vicious cycle keeps on repeating over and over again. Yeah. So this is very important to have a look into their frame of reference. Who are the people that this person is close with? What is their personality type? What kind of professions are they pursuing? Are they ambitious people? Are they educated people, right? What are their interests in life? So you need to build those conversations, right? With the boy in a family environment, parents need to talk. You need to talk openly. You have to be very, very transparent. So that's the first thing. Second thing, which comes even before the first thing, I would say, the person needs to know themselves completely well, who they are, what do they want from life, what do they bring as a person on the table, what is it that they can't provide in a relationship that they're seeking marriage, right? So they need to know themselves first and know their worth. What is it that they're bringing on the table? So they know what extra is it that the man needs to bring on the table for the wife so that he can be complementary to that relationship. A marital relationship is not a compromise. It needs to be a complementary relationship. So when you know from the beginning who you are, what you bring on the table, then your expectations from your spouse would be very clear, and they need to be explicitly told to the other person, communicated to the other person. This is who I am. This is what I bring on the table. This is what I'm looking for in a man, and vice versa. That then half the battle is won already, because if your expectations are clearly explained and the other person feels as though they don't have what this person needs, then they will back out anyway, right? So that's another way of helping yourself. The third way is having conversations and meeting the boy's family and the girl's family, in different environments, different settings. As the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, if you want to get to know somebody, travel with them, eat with them. And why these, and there's a third thing as well that I can't think of, but basically in a nutshell, what they're trying to say is meet them in different settings, with your mahram, with your family, involve them, and involve the other side, of the family members as well. The more you meet them, the more you get to know them better, right? And keep on doing your istikhara. So when you're seeking guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can't go wrong, and when the expectations are obviously in the beginning stage clearly laid out, then both the parties, have the right to decide whether they're for me or they're not, right? So these three things I think are very, very important for anybody seeking, a marital relationship. Very important bits to, connect and take as a tool to explore the other person. Now we go back to answering the second part of your question, which is what kind of advice would I like to give to someone who is currently in an abusive relationship? Again, my sisters, your self-esteem, your self-worth, self-love comes first. If you feel you've started questioning your relationship, then that is the first, question mark for you, for the alarm bells to go off that there's something wrong. And that should be the time when you need to go out and seek support. There are so many organizations out there who've been, helping endlessly, seamlessly women, as well as men who are in abusive relationships. So you need to start attending these awareness workshops. And, loads of them are being done online as well, right? So from the comfort of your own house, you can't go in this blind. It isn't that easy. Just because they've conditioned you and they've normalized abuse to you, and you've been forced to accept it, doesn't mean you're going to ever be comfortable with it, because God hasn't created us that way to feel oppressed and oppress other people. That's going against our fitrah. So the minute you start feeling uncomfortable, you need to start getting, more information. Start attending these awareness workshops. Women's Aid is there, Back in Control Consultancy by Sister Veronica is there. Yourself, Sister Parul, you do lots of, awareness around the same subject matter, and you're bringing in a more holistic approach to even give them, help them with increasing their self-confidence and self-esteem and emotional resilience. So sisters like ourselves, who may not have lived experience, but have got massive knowledge, underpinning knowledge. And we're more than happy to share that on, open platforms publicly. We're there to serve and help women and men. So there are lots of ample opportunities out there that these sisters, can seek help from, support from, information, understanding from, and then see where they're at. And see where they're at, and then they can decide whether they are in an abusive relationship or they're not. If they are, then they need to seek support and get mediation done, right? Now, coming from a South Asian community, the biggest fear factor of our sisters is, if we report this to the police, they're going to take our husbands away. However, what they don't know is that the police has no authority, no right to take your husbands away until and unless you press charges, right? So that's the second stage. However, just because you're fearful that they're going to take your husband away, you can't put your own life and your children's life in jeopardy. Safety is the basic need. To feel safe and feel secure is the basic need of any human being. Nobody has the right to step into your healthy boundary, to step into your space. Not your husband, not your wife, not your parents, not your children, not your siblings, nobody. So who sets that healthy boundary? You set it yourself. What does that healthy boundary look like? Anything that makes you feel comfortable in the presence of another person is your healthy boundary. The minute you start feeling uncomfortable, that's it. That means you're now vulnerable. The other person has stepped over. They've trespassed into your healthy boundary. The alarm bell should immediately start going off and start thinking what triggered that to happen. What kind of emotions did you feel? What needs to happen to avoid this, going forward, right? So you need to question yourself, and you need to start seeking all this information. And then at that point in time, you need to make a decision whether this needs to be reported or not. Of course, if it's a matter of, life and death, and your children's sanity and their safety is in jeopardy, you need to inform the police straight away. If you don't want to press charges, that's up to you. It all depends upon how dire, how bad the situation is. But the first step would be seeking information and knowledge, making yourself fully aware, being able to strike the ground, fight your ground and find your ground, and then move forward from there. Now, the third side, or the third element of the same question is how to improve your relationship if you are in a challenging relationship. Of course, if you're in an abusive relationship, there are different ways. As I mentioned, you need to seek mediation. You need to involve family service. You'll have to inform the police, and they can, then have the restraining order for your husband. Whatever the situation is, or whatever the dynamics of your relationship is, that's the legal side of things. When it comes to, third-party involvement, there is Relate out there that help you, with communicating in a relationship, because communication is the gap between you and your relationship. So that's how important it is. And Relate guys work exactly on your communication to help you understand where the gap is so you can bridge it accordingly. People like yourselves, people like myself are also out there publicly to help people with exactly that, to understand the fine line between a communication gap and being in an abusive relationship. Many people, get confused with that as well, thinking that this isn't a communication gap, this is abusive relationship. They go over the board. They're not being able to weigh the relationship, in proportion. So when it's taken out of proportion, they tend to stretch it, way beyond. And that's where the power struggle comes in. Then when you push the other person against the wall, there's just a limit to how much they can take, and then they're going to start reacting. They're going to be crying for mother life, so they're going to be responding either flight, fright, or freeze. You need to choose which response to give. And that response is based on the situation that you've been put in, right? So I think we're all mature enough to understand what's coming our way and what kind of help, do we need. Well, we certainly do need help if we feel there are some challenges in, going in our relationships. For that matter, the massages are also open. You can also go and speak to the imams, and spiritual leaders, whoever they may be, and ask them to, do mediation between you and your spouse. So essentially, why relationships are going downhill is because the ego is kicking in. The element of me is kicking in, and the element of we, which, essentially is a family unit. The focus of we is the focus on the entire family unit. That gets diluted because the ego is kicking in. So why would we let the ego kick in? Because if we understand the reason why we get married is to get a deeper connection or build a deeper connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why can't we become selfless? Why can't we develop complementary relationships rather than focusing on me, which is the ego? And what does ego stand for? Edging God out. Simple as, right? So we need to understand these simple intricacies of life in order to make your life simple and smooth and transparent in black and white. There is no gray area. There shouldn't be any gray area. If it is, my advice is please go reach out and seek help.
Thank
I
you.
hope I've been able to,
You've covered a lot. I just want to pick on a few things. I mean, I'm not going to repeat everything. I think one of the things you said is, the point you feel, you start questioning your relationship, seek help. It's really important to seek help. And, the other thing is relationship should be complementary, not compromise. You should be a complementary to each other. So it's really important. When you are talking, I kind of see the battle of sexes, men versus women, how, and as a Muslim community, Southeast Asian community, lots of things came from culture, not religion. People use culture and label as religion. And that's something, I mean, domestic violence, abuse happen between both, happen to women, happen to men. But majority, when you look at statistics, is affects women, and their confidence level just goes in. And one important thing you mentioned about self, looking after yourself, yes, a lot of time you say, yeah, I've got kids, I can't leave the relationship, I'm stuck. And that's something I found over the year, especially during pandemic, when I'm actually coaching lots of women who are going through domestic violence. Money, shame, and children. These are the three things comes into their head without thinking about themselves, and the other important point you've talked about is before even you getting married or relationship is know yourself first. If you know where your gaps are, look at when you find someone, you're looking at relationship, find somebody who's going to complement your gap. You're going to complement each other, one or compromise. So great point, sister, is a lot of information. I do hope that people take notes, and information he gave is not just applied to Muslim community or Asian community. A lot of information you talked about is general for everyone who's watching this video. It is about relationship. It is about, relationship, not just between men and women, but also about how you teach your children, your community, your society as overall as well. So thank you. Yes. So my final question to you, if you were to leave one thought, I know you got a lot to share, one thoughts with our audience, especially those who's going through difficult time, what that would be?
Yeah, my final message, or the closing message, which would be, please put yourself first, put your sanity first. You can't give out from an empty bucket. Okay, so stop suffering in silence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created you beautiful, resourceful, powerful. You just need to connect with your inherent powerful, inherent strength, inherent resourcefulness. That's going to help you get to know who you are, and that would then lead to what do you want to do in life. Just be able to connect with your higher purpose and don't suffer in silence. Just keep giving away and stay the beautiful self that God's created you.
Thank you very much, Hina. Audience, you've heard so many tips in this video, so please do take note. And what I'll be doing is putting some phone numbers below the video as well for support services, so you know where to seek help. But as Hina said, put yourself first. The message we get when you get into plane, put your oxygen mask first before you help your child, because if you are not there, who's going to help your child? So remember, yes, as a mother, as a woman, you always feel helping others, but help yourself first, so you can help everybody else. And that's really important. So please do like and share our video to anybody who you think will benefit from, and subscribe to our channel so you get alert with the rest of the video. As we are in 16 days of activism, so I'm doing a lot of interviews and lots of social media profile. You'll see there are lots of things going on at the moment. We just want to raise awareness so that we ensure everybody understand and we help each other with the difficult and challenging issues. So I'm Parul, your host, and I'll say bye for now, and thank you very much, Hina, for your time and for your guidance for our audience.
My pleasure, sis. Anytime. You take good care, and inshallah we'll come together again soon sometime.
Yeah, sure.